After an unsuccessful job on Oolong Island, the Secret Six returned home for some solid rest and relaxation. In doing so, Scandal forgot that she had a date with Liana, her girlfriend. So distraught was Liana over this that she dropped her guard and was kidnapped by a fan named Randall. But the six are not on their way to save her. You see, Scandal had a vision of her dead girlfriend, Knockout, who was despairing over Scandal's inaction in saving her. Scandal went to use the Get Out of Hell Free card, but found it gone. Knowing that only Ragdoll could have stolen it, Scandal attacked him, and it kinda sorta stabbed him. Sticking his thumb into her eye one last time, Ragdoll used the card to teleport to Hell. The Secret Six then followed. They lost Black Alice along the way, but gained Etrigan the Demon as an ally. They discovered that Ragdoll had lived, saved by the, Hellions? Demons? I mean, Hellions feels right. Hellions. Let's say Hellions, because he had no soul, and is their prophesied savior. In spite of all that, he still won't give up the card. The Six and Ragdoll have gone back and forth on this. Ragdoll unwilling and threatening violence, the Six asking for the card and promising retaliation. The two forces had finally come to blows when Knockout stepped in, punching Scandal and defending her betrothed husband-to-be. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown episode Secret 6.18, The Darkest House, Part 2. At the sight of Knockout, Scandal is stunned. Partially because Knockout is wearing this killer dress and she just looks gorgeous, and partially because, well, what is she supposed to do now? Yeah, she's found Knockout, but she's clearly not herself. How is she supposed to save her? Scandal narrates as she stares at the other woman, talking about standing at the fence between sanity and madness. Because she can see madness on the other side, and she wants it. While she muses, Ragdoll adds that the Six can stay here. This doesn't have to be a fight, and they don't have to leave. In fact, if they stay, they can be his court. Rather than the ones being punished for all time, they can be the ones holding the whip. This offer comes with Hell Battle costume redesigns for all. Huzzah! King Shark has ornate armor, Jeanette gets horns, Bane becomes a hulking, chitinous brawler, and Deadshot's hand becomes one with his gun. They all look suitably intimidating, and Jeanette asks Scandal to consider this. Never, ever will they be offered this choice again. She says that she's been in hell before, which is news to me, and, better to rule in hell and all that. But Scandal has to fight. She loves her friends too much to ask them to burn for her for all eternity, though. So Jeanette suggests that they vote. She wants to stay. Bane will always fight. King Shark wants to stay. Deadshot doesn't care. With one motion, he aims and fires, hitting Doll right in the forehead. But why does he do this? While Lawton had long guessed and understood that he was heading to hell, he also never wavered in the face of it. He doesn't fear damnation. So does he do this out of bravado? One last screw you to the forces that are trying to manipulate him? Or has he allied with Scandal in earnest? Remember, Lawton has done several kindnesses for her. It's clear that he cares for her. Or maybe none of that matters and Lawton is simply a nihilist, believing in nothing but nothing. Does he just not care? Let's break it down. In regards to the screw you, that certainly feels like Lawton. He's anti-authoritarian enough that I could see this. And out of all of the Six, he's generally been the most annoyed at Ragdoll and perhaps the least sympathetic towards him. So if Ragdoll is offering something, I could see Lawton spitting in his face just to do it. But in the last issue, after Ragdoll told his big story, Lawton was willing to leave Ragdoll in hell and go. He's clearly interested in returning to Earth, and Ragdoll's deal doesn't offer him anything that he wants. Lawton doesn't care to dodge his fate in hell, nor does he enjoy inflicting pain on others. He's a mercenary and a killer, sure, but he isn't a sadist. Normally, when Lawton does something nice for Scandal, there's an in-story acknowledgement of it. Whether that's from Scandal or another member of the Six, someone always kind of brings it up. That hasn't happened here, nor does it happen in the rest of the arc, so I think that option is unlikely. What I think, really, is that none of this scares Lawton. Jeanette fears this fate, she says as much, but we've seen that Lawton suppresses his emotions. Back in Dance Macabre, when looked at by a Black Lantern, Lawton showed almost no emotions at all. He isn't scared of dying. He isn't scared of going to hell. It occurs to me now that Deadshot emotionally kind of works like a bullet. He does what he does, having been fired from a gun, and lands wherever he lands. He'll kill anyone in his way, so he does. Anything that comes after, he'll deal with. No weaseling or cheating out of it. He isn't thinking about the Six with this decision, or their fate, or his fate. Lawton wants to leave, and he'll kill whoever he has to in order to do it. The only member of the Six who isn't present for all of this is Catman. He bailed on the team last issue, using Etrigan to guide him to his father. Reese Blake is naked, exposed to the elements, and chained to a tree, his eyes totally black. I can't quite tell if they're empty sockets, like his eyes are gone, or if his eyes are just black. He's surprised to hear his son's voice, and assumes that he's finally been sent to hell for his sin of killing him. But Catman says that no, he is still alive. And this gives Reese hope. He begs Catman to free him, telling him that he doesn't know what it's like. Every day, she comes to eat him, breaking his bones and tearing at his flesh, and then in her feces he's reborn. It never gets old. The pain is always new and fresh, and he has to help him. But this leaves Catman confused. Who is she? Why, it's the Lioness, Catman's mother, Sienna Blake. And sure enough, a lioness with a woman's face seems to walk out of the air. She's happy to see her son and greets him, licking at his hand. But she also asks him to leave. The work that she's about to do, it's rather unbecoming for a lady. Catman says that he understands and that he loves her. She replies that she loves him too, forever and evers. Catman leaves as his father shouts at him. He doesn't do it for very long, though, his voice turning into a scream, and then ending abruptly. Etrigan can see that Catman remains unsatisfied, despite confirming that his father suffers. And, well, yeah, it's just Catman had hoped that his mother would be in heaven. Quote, "She was a bad actress, but she was a good woman," unquote. To which Etrigan explains that, if one can pay the price, they can choose their heaven. This is hers. Man, this book is so screwed up that I'm not even sure if that's screwed up anymore. I like everything about Reese Blake's fate. Reese consumed the life of Sienna Blake, taking it for his own benefit, and so I like Sienna consuming him for the rest of eternity. Combining her with the Lioness is a nice bit of poetry for us, the audience, as well. Reese forced his son to kill both an innocent Lioness and his innocent mother, so having them both punish him is great. But it also tells us something about Sienna. As we're informed of by Etrigan, if you choose to pay the price, you choose your heaven, and Sienna chose this. So it was her idea to take this form and to punish Reese. She saw how wrong it was to kill that animal, and to make her son do it, and perhaps she even sympathized with it to a degree. When Sienna appears, I guess, the artwork has her kind of stepping out of the setting sun. And I think that Simone and Calafiore are simply implying that the sun is going down, a predator is coming out, and is going to start hunting. But I like to interpret the sun as a portal to heaven, and Sienna steps through it, ready for another round of punishment. When she's done, she'll return to heaven and be at peace for a time. Because while I like her choosing to punish Reese, I'm also sad that she's forever traumatized by his treatment of her. She's still carrying that pain and that desire for justice, and I'd like her to be free of it. And since this is all made-up story time anyway, I'm going to imagine that she can be. So there. On Earth, Randall is still deprogramming Liana. She has been moved onto a bed, but she's sitting up, her back against the headboard. Her arms are stretched out to either side, tied to the board. Randall can see her sickness just by looking at her. He can tell that she's a, quote, a deviant, a temptress, a whore, unquote. Which she argues. She isn't a whore, and honestly, he doesn't have any right to make that decision for her anyways. Randall argues back. She sells her nakedness for money. It's obvious that she's a whore. Liana says that she knows a lot of sex workers. They're people. They're human. And they're doing a job. The only one here who is sick is Randall and people like him. People who need to believe that they're better. And, quote, on his best day, Randall isn't fit to breathe their air, unquote. He slaps her then. Those are sick thoughts. That's what he's going to cure her of. Randall turns around and reaches for his hot sauce. We never get any background information or life details about Randall. His narration in issue 31 did little to reveal any light on him as a person, however broken he is. But I think that this scene does a little bit of work in that regard. It's interesting to me that he sees the sin in Liana, and yet he burned his own eyes out first. Did Randall see his lust after Liana as something wrong with him? Or did he see her rejection of him as a sign that something else was wrong with him? Is Randall projecting his own inadequacies and shame onto Liana? He clearly views himself as saved, but he hasn't actually addressed the emotional problems that he has in order to be saved. But he thinks that he is, so now he's going to save the woman that he loves. I'm not saying that Randall's actions are justified, but I am glad to see some character work being done to make him more interesting. In conclusion, no swearing this guy. So, back in Hell, the Six are doing battle against the hordes of Hell, giving Scandal a chance to grab Knockout. She literally picks Knockout up, which is impressive because Knockout is like 6 feet plus of pure muscle, and starts running. She doesn't get far though, as all this madness has finally gotten the attention of the ruler of Hell. Lady Blaze approaches, armed with a staff adorned with a cow skull. Her torso is covered in armor, and a long black skirt runs down her legs, curling at the ends Dr. Membrane style. Long, twisting black hair rises from below her helmet, which hides all of her features save for red glowing eyes and pointed teeth. 2 long horns curve from it, Loki style, and she wants to know who the fuck no swearing opposes the marriage that she arranged so carefully. Deadshot isn't sure how they're supposed to handle her, and Jeanette tells him that they can't. They are done. Lady Blaze kneels next to Ragdoll. Shockingly not dead, he says that he's failed her, and she says that he did, but at least it was entertaining. She stands and points to the Six. They came here to do something selfless and noble, and now she'll break them for it. She gestures at them, and instantly each experiences their own personal hell. Bane is a child once more, returned to the prison of his youth. His mother speaks to him, her face covered by Bane's mask. She caresses his face. She died here, but he did not. She was devoured by rats, but her child was devoured by this prison, and reborn as Bane. Rats begin to climb up his pants leg as she speaks. He was alone. He had no one and nothing. He had to change, Bane argues. And his mother is aware. That's her hell. Lawton stands in a graveyard, dressed in his Raffles costume from Secret 6 issue 15. The tombstone before him has no name, but its epitaph is, "He was in the way." Then the corpse beneath it rises, and so do more and more from the rest of the cemetery. Floyd isn't scared, though. He draws his pistols, which is when one of the undead smiles, telling him that he's out of bullets. Jeanette's hell takes us into her past. She stands alone on the cliffs of Ireland in a simple dress. A small castle is in the background as her husband returns. She's happy to see him at first, but she can tell that something is wrong. He's learned of how long she's haunted these lands, and he feels betrayed by her for it. Jeanette lowers her head in shame. She had hoped that if she found love, a true love, then perhaps she could become mortal. He raises his axe as a tear runs down her face. They're going to find out if it worked. King Shark pulls up to a restaurant in a limo, sharply dressed and accosted by paparazzi. He's pretty happy with all of this, truth be told. Two women slide up alongside him as he exits the limo and heads inside, finally getting the respect that he's always wanted. The garçon recognizes him immediately and takes him to the best table. Shark opens the menu but is confused because there's no meat on it. The waiter laughs at his joke. Of course not. This restaurant is 100% vegetarian. King Shark pulls a Darth Vader. No! God damn.
No swearing.
Do I feel that, Shark? I love how Simone breaks these scenes up. Deadshot and King Shark's Hells are both fitting and funny in a way that only Gail Simone does so well. Meanwhile, Bane and Jeanette's are much more serious and real. Jeanette's may even be right out of her past. And it also makes me question her backstory. We know that Jeanette was born in Hungary, or at least was of Hungarian descent, where she had a really rough experience. At some point, she married, and she said that the axeman who killed her was drunk and poorly paid by her husband. But this man swings the axe himself. Now, it's likely that Simone is adjusting for dramatic effect here. Even if her husband didn't actually kill her himself, he did pay for the deed, and he's the one who condemned her, which really is as good as killing her. Or, given that husband mentions her multiple lives, has Jeanette actually died several times, betrayed by her lover each time? Was this the death that caused her to become a banshee? Actually, after thinking about it, we really know almost as little about Jeanette as we do Ragdoll. That's weird. Each of these hells are colored differently, making sure to indicate to us that these experiences are unique to each individual. But each one happens in the minds, or maybe the souls, of the six, as they're shown to be getting up later on. They're more than a little shaken when they do it, but they're also restored to their true selves. Their hell battle costumes are gone. Not far away, Scandal stops running and puts Knockout down. She can't abandon the six, her friends, to torture. They came here for her without even asking a question. Scandal can't turn her back on them like this. Not even for Knockout. Scandal runs a gentle hand down Knockout's face. And that's right. She's in hell. Knockout remembers. Scandal and Knockout return to the six to find Ragdoll alive and in another new costume. Lady Blaze says that if he's a prince of hell, then he can't dress like a clown anymore. He is to be a terror, and his clothes change. Ragdoll's face and arms are now wrapped in bandages. Black leather waders, I guess, cover from his ribcage down to his feet, and a torn shirt covers his chest. A mop of stringy hair hangs to one side of his face. He is actually much creepier looking now than either of his two previous designs. And I'm not sure if I dig that or not. In any case, Scandal and Knockout return. Scandal then challenges Lady Blaze to a fight, the prize being her true love and friends. Lady Blaze pauses at this, and then she laughs. And you know, it ain't often that she gets to do that. She thanks Scandal for the experience, and then prepares to give her a taste of her own personal hell. But the arrival of Catman interrupts her, and by now, the others have recovered as well. They're ready to die, all of them, because no one owns them. Bane challenges Lady Blaze to actually look into his soul and see the truth there. Know that he will never stop trying to topple her. Etrigan cuts in here, reminding everyone that this started because of the Get Out of Hell Free card. What's happening with that? Ragdoll holds it up. Seeing the Six's declaration, he's reminded that this is what they did. They defended each other. He turns to his lady, and he won't be her prince. Quote, I stand with my family, unquote. Then he turns to Parademon and apologizes for leaving him here. It's cool, though. Parademon is having a blast in hell. Wednesday's hot poker day. God, you're a weird character, Parademon. Ragdoll then hands the card to Scandal, who doesn't know what to say. Ragdoll asks her to tell him that love is real, and that even things such as they deserve it. Lady Blaze pauses for a moment, and then she makes her decision. They're free to go. Every one of them will be back eventually anyway, and really, Scandal has it worst of all. Sure, she can use the card to save Knockout, but then Liana's soul will be trapped in hell, because she'll be coming along soon. The only true freedom in this world is from love, responsibility, and guilt, and that can only be found in hell, Lady Blaze says. But, quote, you have my sympathy, unquote. And that's where Darkest House ends. It's a bit of an unusual ending for Simone. She normally wraps up an entire arc pretty tightly. The only other real dangling leftover was kind of Deadshot at the end of Depths, and that got immediately picked up in the next issue. Otherwise, each arc has wrapped up its main plot threads pretty solidly. Emotionally, I love this arc. The strong focus on Scandal and Ragdoll is great, with Catman and Bane taking second, then Deadshot and Jeanette in third. King Shark just gets a participation ribbon, sorry big guy. And really, that's great. Everyone gets an emotional touchstone in just 3 issues of content, and that's pretty amazing. From a plot perspective, I'll admit, I'm slightly annoyed. Just slightly, but it is there. Why did Knockout wait so long to contact Scandal again? And what happened to her in hell? Why was she brainwashed, or how was she brainwashed, if that's indeed what happened to her? I mean, she was certainly out of character, very cold and distant the whole time. What happened to the passionate, boisterous Knockout from the message that Scandal got? Clearly, something happened, but we never really took the time to explore that. Nor did we explore Ragdoll's lack of a soul or his prophesized fate. Is Ragdoll the way he is because he has no soul? Or is he just a weirdo who happens to have no soul? I mean, if having no soul is this important to the mythology of hell in the DCU, then I feel like we should get some more information on it. What makes having no soul different than having a soul? Would having a soul change Ragdoll? Can you gain a soul if you weren't born with one? The structure of this arc initially annoys me as well, but then, the more I think about it, the more I kinda like it. Stories typically progress from A to B to C, getting more intense as they approach the climax, and then they wind down to close out. But this never really builds in intensity, the stakes never increase. What's at stake from the moment the Six set foot in hell is exactly what's at stake when they leave. The threat never escalates, it just pushes and pulls from one side to the other. Ragdoll will threaten the Six will threaten Ragdoll, and this happens like 3 times. It's almost like neither side really wanted to hurt the other. They were doing the only thing that they knew how to do, speak threats and do violence. And they did this, basically, until one of the sides blinked and then things settled. It's a bit frustrating from a narrative standpoint, but I do feel like it's in character for both halves of the Six. And again, this isn't bad, it's just kind of weird. I'd also like some answers about healing in hell, too. And is there a difference between being a soul lost in hell and just being a body in hell? Like, let's say Catman did want to save his father. Could he free him and, in theory, just walk out with him? Would Reese have a physical form on Earth despite being just a soul? Because, I mean, Ragdoll arrived in hell alive and was then shot in the head. He died in hell. But Lady Blaze just stands him back up and he's fine. Did she resurrect him, or is this a side effect of his soullessness? Ooh, and is his bullet wound actually still there beneath the bandages? He's just, I don't know, still alive? Is his dead body in hell, but now his soul is wandering Earth, but with, like, physical form? I don't know. I have no idea. None of this seems to make any sense, but I'll be sure to keep an eye out for Ragdoll's face in the next 2 issues. You best be sure of that. So there are lots of conceptual problems for me here that don't give me any kind of satisfying answer. They're all relatively minor things, even in my mind as the guy who has the problems with them, and I think that's really the problem with shorter arcs. Once again, a longer, maybe 6-issue arc would have allowed Simone more time to explore these subjects that I want answers on. Otherwise, this arc is pretty solid. It's not going in my top 3 or anything, but it's fast-paced, it's fun, it's insightful, and I really do think that Calafiore does some of his best work that I've ever seen him do. The Darkest House has some solid foundations. It could just use some touch-ups here or there. Which leaves us with Liana. I'm glad that the threat of Randall, introduced previously in the Depths arc, has reared its ugly head once more. That version of Randall does feel different from this version, though. I can't really put my finger on it, but the character felt more genuine, more in love back then. Here he feels much colder, like a man on a misguided mission, which he is, I guess. I really love Liana's refusal to give in to him so far, though. No swearing! That guy. For real. Let's see if she can hold out, though. The 6 now know that she's in danger, sure, but they know nothing else about her situation. Last we saw, their exit from hell was in a mall in Iowa, which is a long way from Vermont. With Black Alice no longer on the team, they have no fast transportation back either. They're either flying or driving, and I don't know if they can get there. Oh, wait, they're there. Issue 34 opens with the 6 at Randall's place. Well, I'm embarrassed. And I'm not joking either, I am totally serious. Simone skips how the 6 get to Randall's location. Randall is on his 3rd bottle of hot sauce and missing his shirt for some reason, but Liana is holding strong. She won't admit that she's a sinner, and honestly, she doubts that Randall knows God at all, which only makes him more determined. But there's a knock at the door. He grabs his gun, opens the door, and finds Jeanette, Bane, Deadshot, Catman, and Scandal outside. His van is running behind him, and the headlights silhouette them in darkness. They are not happy. Deadshot explains, more for our benefit than Randall's, that Catman is the world's best tracker. He got Randall's name just by asking around town. And Scandal over here is great with computers, which is how they got his address. Deadshot tells Scandal to go check on Liana. Then he challenges Randall to a gauntlet. If he can get to his no swearing shitty van, then he lives. He just has to get past them. Scandal does find Liana alive inside the trailer. She is beaten a bit, and she's hurting, but thank God she is alive. Outside, Randall tries to run that gauntlet. Jeanette bites through 3 of his fingers. Bane breaks his wrist as Randall falls against him in pain. Deadshot shoots out his kneecap, and Catman hauls back on his hair, his knife ready to dive in. Turns out that a lot of sex workers have gone missing in this area recently, and he thinks that Randall is to blame for that. Before Catman can finish him off, though, Liana tells him to stop. Scandal is helping her out of the building. Catman passes her the knife as she approaches. The first one is the hardest, he says. They all know that. But Randall is hers to punish if she wants it. Liana doesn't, though. Randall might not have a relationship with God, but she does. Give him to the cops. They can punish him. And she knows that Scandal and her friends do something awful, so she makes Scandal promise to spare him. Scandal promises. She then asks Jeanette to take Liana to the car. She needs to get to a hospital. Jeanette picks her up, comforting Liana with an Irish lullaby as they walk away. Liana is relieved. She knew that Scandal wouldn't kill somebody. While Liana moves further away, distracted by Jeanette and relief and exhaustion, Scandal asks the men to stand Randall up. He begs for her to stop, but with one strike the Laminas Pesar pass through his brain. There's a moment of quiet in the wake of the murder. With tears in her eyes, Scandal asks if one of these men the only 3 men that she has ever loved, would hold her while she cries. Bane does. You may recall how back in Cats in the Cradle, I commented on Simone's ability to not glorify revenge. That yes, Catman was doing what he felt that he had to in that arc, but that didn't make his actions righteous. This scene has the same kind of feeling. Did I want Randall stopped? Sure. Did I want him punished? Absolutely. But watching him get picked apart so easily by the 6 before Scandal breaks her promise is kind of terrifying. They're like cats with a limbless mouse. Randall didn't stand a chance. And I'm amazed at Simone's ability to both humanize these characters, but not to make them better people. She doesn't make us like them by making them better. They're still murderers and thieves and killers. But she makes us forget that for moments. At least, until something like this happens. This is a moment of tragedy for Scandal Savage, and it feels properly somber. When Scandal thought that Pistolera had killed Knockout, even after torturing her, she still couldn't bring herself to kill her. But here, Scandal takes up the burden and does the deed herself. It isn't treated as a moment of personal triumph, though. It's a moment of personal weakness. We learn a bit more about how Liana views Scandal's work, though. She doesn't know what Scandal actually does, but she knows that it's wrong, which is interesting given her faith and trust in Scandal's word and God. I hope that Liana never tries to visit Randall in prison to forgive him or something like that, because Scandal is going to have some pretty awkward questions to answer. Hours later, this portion of the 6 return to the House of Secrets. King Shark, holding the snack that is a dead chicken, greets them and is genuinely happy to hear that Scandal's gal pal will live. Scandal is pretty amped as well, riding the high of escaping hell, saving Knockout, saving Liana, and keeping the team in one piece. Sure, they've wronged each other, but they've also forgiven each other every time. Maybe they aren't good people, but they're better at least than men like Randall. So she wants them to be happy. They deserve to be happy. So she orders Bane to go on a date with Spencer. Tonight. King Shark even points out how happy Catman has been, and how odd it is that the clown is frowning lately. Deadshot agrees something is off with Catman. But Catman smiles. His father is in hell, experiencing agony for every moment of it, for eternity. Justice does exist, and Catman is glad to know it. Interesting that Blake takes comfort in eternal punishment, where the others seem to balk at it. Scandal picks up on King Shark's observation about Ragdoll, and she finds him on the roof. He tells her to leave, but she doesn't, asking if he's cold out here. He replies that his memories of hell will keep him warm. He asks after Knockout, who is sleeping. Ragdoll checked on Black Alice when they got back, but he found her room empty. It's been totally cleaned out. Not even a note to say goodbye. So one friend left without saying anything, and the other friend prefers hell over his company. The only 2 friends he has, and they're both gone. Scandal holds his hand. He has miscounted. He has 3. Aww. How in the world can Scandal be this kind? So open-hearted, so willing to forgive, so able to care? She's great. I love this.
No swearing.
And shut up! I'm not crying. You're crying. The roller coaster of sweetness isn't over yet, because this seemingly never-ending night goes on as Bane and Spencer go on their first date to a carnival. They eat a caramel apple, Bane wins her a pair of giant pandas, and they ride the Ferris wheel. While doing so, Spencer asks how Bane is, well, the way that he is. He's been very awkward during the date. Never offensive or mean, but he's distant and unaware of social norms. So Bane recounts his origin for her. Born in a prison, raised there into Bane, and then never breaking afterwards. At least until he broke the bat. And then the bat broke him. She takes this massive info dump pretty well, sharing her own story once they're off of the ride. Well, not as bad as Bane's situation. She says that her parents weren't good people either. It was her own kind of prison, really. Bane begins to ask her a question, which she immediately thinks is how she became a stripper. Every date wants to know. But no, Bane asks how she kept her kindness through it all. Oh, again! Damn it, Simone! Give me a minute to just wipe my eyes, folks. Hang on. Okay. A group of... Is carnies an appropriate term these days? I kind of feel like it shouldn't be. I'm not sure. Okay. A group of carnies approached them. When Bane won those giant pandas, he flashed a wad of bills as thick as his fists. And these gentlemen won it. It's 4 armed men against 1, so Bane physically picks up and moves Spencer a safe distance away before turning back to the men. And then they fight. Bane downs 2 of them quickly, but the third dodges past Bane, aiming for Spencer. He spins, blocking the knife with his hand. And now he's upset. Bane smashes the blade back into the owner's head while it's still in his hand. And the 4th guy flees. Spencer rushes over to him, totally impressed by his defense of her. Bane is confused by this. He just did what was natural. They were attacked, he defended. But he did more than that. Spencer points out that Bane only got angry about the attack when they threatened her. She kisses him, and he can see her point. It is valid. The pair gather up their pandas and head for Spencer's place, where there will be lots of mating. Outside of the opening with Randall, this scene takes up the majority of the issue, and I love it. Again, watching Bane try to interact with normal society is great. His lack of experience is funny and tragic, showcasing what a terrible childhood he had. I'll admit that I was hoping for more info on Spencer to round out her character some more, but Simone kinda glazes over it. This story might feature Spencer, but it's Bane's story, so he's our focus. I like his cold precision during the attack, although I don't buy the knife through his hand and into some guy's head move. The force that would have been necessary to push that blade through the skull would have been enough to push the blade back out of Bane's hand. But holy balls, if that wasn't a cool moment. The final page of the issue takes us back to the House of Secrets, where Jeanette is checking in on Scandal after their unusual week. And Scandal is happy to have her company. Knockout and Liana will recover, which means that Scandal will need to make a decision soon. But Jeanette says otherwise. Given their trip to hell and their sentence to it, Jeanette thinks that their lives aren't meant to be normal. They aren't bound by the rules of everyone else. So why would those rules apply to their love lives? Instead, they should shine as bright as they can, so people will remember them forever. I really like this ending. Yes, there is trouble brewing and the world is a dangerous place, but the 6 have each other, and they know exactly who they are. Revealing that they're fated to go to hell kind of seems to have freed them up a bit. There's no more worrying about good or evil or the fate of their souls. There's just a search for happiness and contentedness among them. And it's kind of hard to argue with that. I'm glad that Simone took the time to give us this breathing space. I won't lie, I feel like Liana's part of this story is rushed in order to get it and these character moments in. I actually have a bit of a larger theory about kind of the structure of the Darkest House, this particular issue, and then our last 2 issues, but I'm going to cover that in our next episode when I can kind of look at everything from more of a bird's eye view. And really, even with the problems that I have with this issue, it's still pretty okay as both halves of it read pretty well and ultimately are satisfying. We do have some leftover questions. Will Scandal choose Knockout, Liana, or is she going to try for both, as Jeanette seems to encourage her to do here at the end? We don't know yet, but that is a great setup for some drama. I'm glad that Scandal got to talk to Ragdoll too, cementing their friendship. These 2 were the narrative core of the Darkest House, so I like seeing them close out the story together. Bane's date with Spencer is insightful, cute, and endearing. Spencer feels largely personality-less, which is a shame given that she's the only non-super criminal that he interacts with. She's just nice. which feels like the exact same personality as Liana, to be honest, and while that works, it also feels kinda lazy. But this scene and the bond formed here will continue to affect Bane as we go into our last 2 issues, which is a good thing, because we'll be focusing on Bane. You see, revealing that Bane is destined for hell has radically altered the way that he views the world. He's formulating a plan, and depending on how it goes, it might mean the end of the Secret Six. Join me next week for our final arc as we throw caution to the wind. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.